When love asks for everything, how much are you willing to give? For Ray Williams, the price was one of his kidneys, and it cost him more than he could ever imagine. Ray sat in the quiet of his living room, holding the divorce papers in trembling hands. His gaze dropped to the scar on his side, which served as a daily reminder of his ultimate sacrifice. He touched it gently, the memories of the surgery flooding back. Hot tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "Wasn't I enough?" The weight of betrayal pressed down on him, heavier than anything he had ever carried. Ray and Imani Williams were the kind of couple people admired. They had the type of love that others dreamed of, a bond built on laughter, shared ambitions, and a passion that made every moment together feel electric. In the early years of their 6-year marriage, their world revolved around each other. They planned trips, envisioned a future filled with children, and cherished their closeness, both emotionally and physically. Imani loved their intimate connection, and Ray took pride in being the man who could make her smile even on her worst days. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. Imani's diagnosis came like a storm out of nowhere. One moment she was full of energy, and the next, she was sitting in a doctor's office, hearing the words no one is prepared for. "You have kidney failure." Her condition was severe, and without a transplant, her chances of survival were slim. But Ray refused to let her become another statistic. He volunteered to get tested, hoping against hope that he would be a match. When the results came back confirming he was compatible, Ray didn't hesitate. He didn't think about the risks or what it might mean for his own health. All he could see was Imani's face, pale and fragile, and he knew he had to act. The surgery was scheduled quickly, and Ray told himself this was just another chapter in their love story, a sacrifice that would keep them together for decades to come. But instead, Ray found himself alone, facing the unthinkable. What he didn't know was that this act of love would change everything, forever. Don't miss the full story of sacrifice, betrayal, and unthinkable consequences. Subscribe now for more gripping tales that will leave you yearning for more. The day Imani received her diagnosis was etched into Ray's memory like a scar. They sat together in the white-walled doctor's office, the air heavy with unspoken fear. The doctor's expression was grave as he explained the results. "Imani, your kidneys are failing. We've reached a point where dialysis is no longer sufficient. Without a transplant, your chances of survival are slim." Imani's hand flew to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. What do we do now?" she asked. Ray, sitting beside her, immediately placed a hand on her trembling shoulder. "We'll figure it out," he said firmly, though his own heart was pounding. The doctor continued, outlining the long wait list for donors. "Finding a compatible kidney is challenging," he said, "and time is of the essence." Ray didn't hesitate. "Test me," he said, his voice steady. Both Imani and the doctor turned to him in surprise. "I want to see if I'm a match," he clarified. Imani's tears spilled over as she gripped his arm. "Ray, you don't have to," she began. But he shook his head. "Yes, I do. I'm not losing you." The tests felt endless. But when the results came back showing Ray was a match, there was relief, mixed with fear. Imani's gratitude was overwhelming. "You're saving my life," she whispered one night as they lay in bed. "I'll never be able to repay you for this." "You don't have to," Ray replied, brushing a tear from her cheek. "We're in this together. Remember?" The morning of the surgery was tense. Imani hugged him tightly before they wheeled him away. "I love you," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll love you forever for this." Ray smiled weakly, holding on to her words as they took him into the operating room. The procedure was supposed to be straightforward, but something went wrong. When Ray woke up, he was greeted not by relief, but by searing pain in his lower body. The doctor's expression was cautious as he explained the complication. "During the surgery, we encountered an issue with the internal iliac artery," the doctor began. "It led to a rare pelvic condition. Blood flow to your pelvic region has been compromised, and this may result in chronic pain and other difficulties." Ray's mind raced. "What kind of difficulties?" he demanded, his voice hoarse. The doctor hesitated. "Mobility issues and possibly sexual dysfunction." Imani's gasp was audible. "This is because of me," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You shouldn't have done this." "Stop," Ray said, his voice firm despite the pain. He reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. "I did this for us. We'll get through it together." The weeks that followed were grueling. Ray remained in the hospital for 2 long months, his body racked with pain and his spirit weighed down by the reality of his condition. Machines beeped around him. Nurses came and went, but his focus was on Imani's face every time she visited. She was there every day at first, bringing books and flowers, holding his hand as he tried to mask his discomfort. "You're so strong," she told him, her eyes filled with admiration. But over time, her visits grew shorter. She smiled less often. Ray noticed the weariness in her voice, but he said nothing. The day he was finally discharged felt like a victory, though it was bittersweet. The ride home was quiet, Imani's reassurances filling the silence as Ray stared out the window. At home, the challenges multiplied. Each step was a struggle. Each day, a test of endurance. Ray threw himself into physical therapy, determined to reclaim some sense of normalcy, but progress was slow. One night, as they sat together on the couch, Imani broke the silence. "I miss us," she admitted, her voice trembling. Ray looked at her, his chest heavy with guilt and frustration. "I'm trying," he said. "I'm doing everything I can." "I know," she replied, tears streaming down her face. "But it's so hard. I don't know how much longer I can do this." Her words pierced through him, but he stayed silent, staring at the scar on his side, a constant reminder of what he had given for love. Imani's withdrawal started slowly, so subtly that Ray tried to dismiss it as stress. At first, it was the late nights spent scrolling on her phone, her body angled slightly away from him in bed. Then came the excuses to skip their usual dinners or movie nights. "I'm tired," she would say. But Ray could see the energy she brought when her friends called or invited her out. He couldn't ignore her growing frustration with their lack of intimacy. It was a conversation they had tiptoed around for months, but when she finally brought up, it was as though a dam had broken. "I just don't feel close to you anymore," she admitted, her voice a mix of irritation and sadness. "You don't even try." Her words stung, but Ray refused to give up. "Let's try other things," he suggested, his tone gentle but pleading. "We can find ways to connect again, to feel close like we used to. It doesn't have to be the same as before." Imani sighed heavily, her expression a mix of frustration and exhaustion. "It's not just about that," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "I don't even know if I can feel the same way anymore." Her words lingered in the air like a blow, but Ray pressed on, determined to fix what was breaking. He put everything he had into salvaging their marriage. He planned romantic dinners, surprising her with her favorite dishes from the restaurant where they had their first date. He bought her thoughtful gifts, expensive jewelry, designer handbags, even a weekend getaway that she canceled at the last minute. Late at night, when Imani would turn away from him in bed, Ray would lie awake praying silently for healing for himself, for his body, and for their relationship. He asked God for the strength to endure the pain, both physical and emotional. Some nights, he would sneak out to the living room and cry quietly, so she wouldn't see how much he was breaking inside. But nothing seemed to reach her anymore. Her smiles became less frequent, her laughter a distant memory. She spent more time with her friends, often coming home late, and her explanations were vague. "We just lost track of time," she would say, rushing past him without meeting his eyes. Whenever Ray tried to kiss her or initiate any form of intimacy, she would pull away, her face hardened with impatience. "Stop. Don't bother," she snapped one evening, her voice sharp. "You can't get me there." Those words haunted Ray. He replayed them over and over in his mind, each repetition chipping away at his confidence and hope. Still, he refused to give up. He threw himself into therapy, both for his physical condition and their marriage. Slowly but steadily, his treatments began to show progress. His doctors were optimistic, but the journey was painstakingly slow. Ray clung to the belief that if he just held on a little longer, they could rebuild what they had lost. But Imani didn't seem willing to wait. Her phone buzzed constantly, and she would guard it like a secret. Ray began to notice patterns, names he didn't recognize, text messages that made her smile in a way he hadn't seen in years. Though he never confronted her directly, a gnawing suspicion began to take root. One quiet Sunday afternoon, the storm finally broke. Imani sat him down at the dining table, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Ray," she began, her voice trembling, "I can't do this anymore." Ray froze, the weight of her words pressing against his chest. "What do you mean?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Tears welled in her eyes, but her resolve didn't waver. "I've tried," she said softly, "but I need more. I need to feel alive again." "More," Ray echoed, his voice hollow. "After everything I've given you? After everything I've done for you? I gave you my kidney, Imani, my kidney, and that's not enough." Her tears spilled over, but she didn't look away. "It's not about what you gave me," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm grateful for what you've done. I'll always be grateful. But I can't live like this anymore. I'm sorry." Ray sat in stunned silence as she continued. "I think we need to separate. This isn't working. We've grown too far apart." The word divorce wasn't spoken, but it hung in the air between them like an unspoken sentence. Ray felt his world collapse. All the sacrifices, all the pain, all the love he had poured into their marriage, it had all been for nothing. As the days turned into weeks, the reality of their separation sank in. Ray learned through mutual friends that Imani had already begun seeing someone else, a detail that crushed him beyond words. The nights became lonelier. The silence of their once shared home was deafening. Ray's faith in love and trust was shattered. He withdrew from friends and family, isolating himself as he struggled to process the betrayal. The scars on his body no longer felt like marks of sacrifice, but reminders of a love that had failed him. In the darkest hours of the night, he would sit in their empty bedroom and whisper to himself, "I gave her everything, and she threw it all away." 12 months after the divorce, Ray was unrecognizable, a hollow version of the man he once was. The light in his eyes had been replaced by an unrelenting darkness. His laughter, once hearty and infectious, was now a distant memory. Friends who once filled his life with warmth and connection had drifted away, unable to navigate the raw anger and bitterness that consumed him. Ray's days blurred into nights, his thoughts trapped in a loop of betrayal and loss. He found himself obsessively scrolling through social media, his finger hovering over Imani's profile. Her posts painted a picture of a woman thriving, dinners with friends, accolades at work, vacations with her new partner. The new man's presence was everywhere, his arm draped around her in every photo, his smile a reminder of everything Ray had lost. Each image felt like a dagger, twisting deeper into wounds that hadn't healed. "She owes me," he murmured to himself. One night, staring at an old photo of the two of them on their wedding day. In the picture, they were smiling carefree and full of dreams. He ran his fingers over the faces frozen in time, his jaw tightening. The betrayal was a fire that burned endlessly in his chest. He couldn't let it go. He couldn't move forward. Not until he had reclaimed what had been taken from him. His kidney, his dignity, his life. The thoughts came slowly at first, whispers in the back of his mind. Then they grew louder, more insistent. He began to track Imani's life with a precision that frightened even him. Through mutual acquaintances, he learned her routines, her favorite cafes, her workplace, events. Social media became a roadmap, offering glimpses of her carefully curated life. Ray memorized every detail, every post, every location tag. It wasn't just obsession. It was preparation. He started spending late nights on his laptop, researching everything from legal proceedings to the logistics of organ donation. The idea of reclaiming his kidney was absurd, but it had lodged itself in his mind. A symbol of all he had sacrificed for someone who had discarded him so easily. As the months passed, his focus sharpened. His plans became more deliberate. He rehearsed what he would say when the moment came, running through scenarios in his head. Every conversation ended the same way, with Imani acknowledging her betrayal and giving him the closure he desperately sought. One evening, Ray found himself outside a community center where he knew Imani would be attending a networking event. He sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. Inside, The hum of voices and laughter spilled out into the parking lot as attendees mingled. Ray adjusted the collar of his shirt, his reflection in the rear-view mirror staring back at him with steely determination. When he finally stepped inside, the fluorescent lights fell harsh against his skin. He scanned the room until he spotted her, standing near a table, her laughter ringing out as she chatted with a small group. For a moment, he just watched, his heart pounding in his chest. She looked radiant, her confidence a stark contrast to the image of her that haunted his memories. Ray approached cautiously, weaving through the crowd with practiced ease. When he was just a few feet away, Imani turned, her smile faltering as her eyes met his. "Ray," she said, her voice a mixture of surprise and hesitation. "Imani," he replied, his tone calm and measured. He slipped his hands into his pockets, a gesture meant to appear non-threatening. "I just want to talk." Her gaze flickered to the crowd around them, then back to him. "Now's not really a good time," she said, her voice uneasy. "It'll only take a minute," he assured her, his eyes fixed on hers. There was something in his gaze, an intensity that made her shift her weight uncomfortably. "Just a minute," he repeated, his voice steady, almost too steady. Imani hesitated, the unease spreading across her face like a dark cloud. She glanced toward the exit, her instincts whispering for her to leave. But before she could respond, Ray took a step closer, his presence overwhelming. "I've been waiting for this moment," he said quietly. "You owe me that much." "Ray, this really isn't the place," she said, her voice trembling slightly as she looked around the crowded room. Her confidence seemed to falter under the weight of his stare. "It's the perfect place," he countered, his lips curling into a bitter smile. "Public, safe, full of people. Isn't that what you want? No room for things to get messy." Imani blinked, her discomfort growing. "What do you mean by that?" she asked cautiously. Ray's voice lowered, his tone sharp as a blade. "I mean, I want to talk about us, about what you took from me, about what I gave you." Imani's shoulders stiffened. "Ray, I told you, I'm grateful for everything you did. I always will be. But we're not together anymore. We've moved on." "You've moved on," Ray snapped, his voice rising slightly, drawing the attention of a few nearby guests. He quickly adjusted his tone, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "I haven't." Imani stepped back, creating a sliver of distance between them. "Ray, I'm sorry for what happened between us. I truly am, but you need to let go of this anger. It's not healthy." "Not healthy?" Ray echoed, his laugh devoid of humor. He leaned in, his voice a venomous whisper. "Do you know what's not healthy? Giving up a piece of your body for someone who doesn't deserve it. Do you know what it's like to wake up every day in pain, knowing the person you sacrificed everything for is living their best life with someone else?" Imani's expression hardened. "That's not fair, Ray. You made that decision. I never forced you." "No," he said coldly. "You didn't force me. You manipulated me. You played on my love for you. And when I couldn't give you everything you wanted anymore, you left." Imani shook her head, her voice rising in defense. "I didn't manipulate you. I loved you, Ray. But things changed. We both changed." "You didn't love me," he shot back, his voice trembling with rage. "You used me, and then you threw me away like I was nothing. Nothing." People were beginning to notice now, their hushed murmurs filling the room. Imani's eyes darted nervously around the space. "Let's take this outside," she suggested, her voice strained. Ray nodded, following her as she led him out to the dimly lit parking lot. The cool night air did little to temper the heat of his anger. As soon as they were alone, he turned to her, his face contorted with years of suppressed emotion. "Do you even feel guilty?" he demanded. "Do you ever think about what you did to me?" Imani crossed her arms defensively. "Of course I feel guilty. But I can't change the past, and neither can you." Ray's hands trembled as he reached into his jacket pocket. His voice cracked as he spoke. "No, I can't change the past. But I can take back what you stole from me." Imani's eyes widened as he pulled out a small handgun. "Ray!" she whispered, taking a step back, her hands raised. "Don't do this." "You owe me," he said, his voice a mix of anger and despair. I gave you life, and now I'm taking it back. Before Imani could respond, Ray raised a gun and fired. The sound echoed through the empty parking lot, the force of the shot sending her crumpling to the ground. She clutched her side, her breaths coming in sharp, panicked gasps as blood pooled beneath her. Ray stood over her, his face a mass of conflicting emotions. I told you, he murmured, his voice distant, almost hollow. You owe me. Sirens wailed in the distance as the scene unfolded. Ray dropped the gun, his hands shaking as he looked down at what he had done. For a brief moment, a wave of satisfaction washed over him, but it was fleeting, replaced almost immediately by a hollow emptiness. I gave her life, he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible, and now I've taken it back. Imani was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was too severe. She died hours later, her life slipping away as Ray stood, staring blankly ahead, the weight of his actions settling heavily on his shoulders, a crushing burden he would carry forever. The police arrived at the scene shortly after the shooting, their flashing lights illuminating the quiet parking lot. Ray stood motionless beside Imani's crumpled form, the gun slipping from his trembling hand. As officers approached, he didn't resist when they cuffed him, his gaze fixed on the blood-stained ground where the woman he once loved now lay. His face, devoid of emotion, betrayed no sign of the storm raging within him. The news of the incident spread quickly, sending shockwaves through their community. Neighbors and friends gathered in hushed groups, their voices tinged with a mix of disbelief and horror. He was such a kind man, one neighbor murmured, shaking her head. I can't believe he would do something like this. Others, however, were less forgiving. Kind or not, there's no excuse for what he did. Another said firmly, no one has the right to take someone else's life. At the trial, Ray sat silently as the prosecution painted a grim picture of premeditated murder, emphasizing the meticulous planning and his obsession with reclaiming his kidney. The charge of first-degree murder loomed over him, carrying the possibility of life in prison without parole, or even the death penalty, given the state's laws. Ray's defense team argued otherwise. They highlighted the rare medical condition he suffered as a result of surgery, detailing how it had caused chronic pain and stripped him of the ability to maintain a normal marital relationship. They spoke of the emotional trauma he endured, betrayed by the woman he had sacrificed everything for. Expert witnesses testified to the psychological toll of organ donation under such circumstances, painting Ray as a man pushed to his breaking point. In a surprising twist, the defense called Imani's close friend to the stand, who revealed that Imani had often dismissed Ray's struggles, referring to his condition as a burden she couldn't bear. She said she needed someone who could meet her needs, the friend admitted, her voice wavering. But I never thought it would end like this. Imani's betrayal, combined with Ray's suffering, struck a chord with some members of the jury. However, the prosecution argued that no amount of emotional pain justified such a violent act. This was not a moment of passion, the prosecutor said in their closing statement. This was cold, calculated revenge. The verdict came after days of deliberation. Ray was convicted of voluntary manslaughter. The court recognized the emotional distress and provocation he endured, reducing the charge from first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years for good behavior. Ray's story sparked broader conversations about the emotional toll of organ donation, the societal expectations placed on men to endure pain silently, and the devastating consequences of betrayal in relationships. Many questioned whether more support systems could have prevented such a tragedy. Was Ray a monster, or a broken man failed by those he trusted most? How far would you go for love? And what would you do when love betrays you? If you found this story compelling, subscribe to our channel for more real-life tales that delve into the depths of human emotion and tragedy. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. We want to hear from you. What would you do in Ray's shoes?